Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePapier-mâché.com. I got the paper mache on my little Chihuahua. We did the wire armature a few days ago, made a video of that. And then I did some experiments that didn't turn out very good. I didn't like it. I always have to experiment, and sometimes the experiments don't work. So I just went ahead and threw that guy out and made a new one. The wire armatures go together so quickly just with the wire and the foil. I just made a new one. But I did make a couple of changes. Let me go ahead and show you how this guy is different, and then I'll show you how I put the paper mache on. That part's really easy. This time I didn't put any foil around the legs because when I tried it before, the legs got just a little bit too fat when I added the paper mache. And then I used foil instead of cardboard for the ears. That's just about the only changes that I made. I mixed up some flour and water to make a paste. You can make this paste as thin or thick as you want to. It really doesn't matter. And then, of course, as always, with paper mache, I just tore half of a sheet of newspaper into little pieces. I did pull off the hard edges around the outside of the paper first, just so I could have nice torn edges. The cut edges they don't smooth over very easily. When you tear the edges, they almost melt into each other, but the cut edges, they leave a line that doesn't look very nice. Then I just dipped each piece of paper into the paste, and I pulled off all the excess paste against the side of the bowl, and I pressed it over the masking tape on my armature. Now, I know that Dan Reeder says we should never dip our paper in the paste, and I know he has really good reasons for saying that, but I go ahead and do it anyway. So hopefully he won't watch this video. I do use the biggest pieces that I can. That is one thing that Dan always tells us to do, and I do try. I think it makes the piece stronger, and it goes together a lot faster. Newspaper is so soft that it will bend into almost any shape you want it to. If you go ahead and push on it a little bit, even the little ridges where it folds can sometimes be smoothed over. But there are some areas where you just can't make it go around a corner very well. And so when I get to the spot like that, I just go ahead and make a small tear in the paper and press it down. That way you don't end up with creases in places where you don't want to. Newspaper is really fragile when it's wet, so sometimes it doesn't tear it the way you want it to, as you can see. But once you got it smoothed down onto the armature and then covered with another piece, it works just fine. I wrapped shorter pieces around the leg, trying to make sure not to add too much paper to the legs, just because I didn't want them to get too fat. The head, of course, was covered the same way as the rest of the body, including the ears. And then when everything else was covered with at least 2 layers of paper mache, hopefully more in most places, I tore one piece that was long enough to wrap around the neck, and I used that for the collar. I just put paste on both sides, folded it up into a long thin strip, and then wound it around the dog's neck. I used a small piece of paper to cover the ends where they overlap. And then I folded another piece of pasted paper into, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 layers and cut it into a heart. This will be the puppy's Valentine's Day dog tag. Valentine's Day is coming up, and so it seemed appropriate. I rolled a really small piece of paper for the metal loop that's going to hold her dog tag onto the collar, and put that on there too. And then for the nose, I used a really tiny piece of blue shop towel instead of the newspaper, but I think the newspaper probably would have worked just as well. And I just rolled that up with some paste and tried to make it into a somewhat triangular ball and put that on the end of her muzzle. And then I put another piece of newspaper over the top of that to hold it on securely and get a nice smooth line across the top. And as you can see, I got way too much paste on the nose and made it kind of hard to see what I was doing. But that's essentially all that was done for this little girl. As soon as this part of it was finished, I went ahead and put her over a heating vent. It'll take several days for her to dry all the way through. There's not very many layers of paper mache on here. I tried to get 3 or 4. Probably in some areas there's only 2, but it's so small that'll be plenty good enough. I want to make sure though that it's dry all the way through before I add any paint. And I also hope that you're having better weather than we are. We're right in the middle of a major blizzard here in South Dakota, and I don't know if you can hear the wind blowing against the house. We can barely see the houses across the street, so I'm hoping you're staying warm. Go make something, have fun, and when you do make something, come show it off over at ultimatepapermache.com. We would love to see it. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.